Welcome to week 4 of PSHS 6240 here at George Washington University's Homeland Security program. I just wanted to review week 3. I think we had a very good Adobe Connect or WebEx session on Friday, so good job for Group 1. They're in the shoot, and Group 2, you're in the shoot for next Friday as well. Same thing, I'll send you the link. And make sure you get the slides to me again, and you'll get more guidance on the assignment after next week. But good session on Friday night, and I look forward to Group 2, not this upcoming Friday, but in 2 weeks. Paper 1, for the rest of you, Paper 1 is due now, whenever you're watching this, but it's due Sunday night, midnight. So please get that into me, and I'm hoping to have that turned back to you by next week. So you have an idea of what I'm looking for the next paper as well. So week 3 review. Again, this class goes, even if you have papers, we still have to continue with the assignments and the week-to-week modules. And the week was Road to 9/11. And one of the themes you hopefully got from my lecture was, are we looking at the short-term or the long-term Road to 9/11? And what I mean by long-term, the Road to 9/11 video talks about the mandate period after the First World War, and the roots to 9/11 lie there. Other analysis talk about the rise of Wahhabism, which is in the 18th century. You can even go back to the Crusades in the 1000s. All these are talks of the long road to 9/11, that all these historical events for 100 to even hundreds of years contributed to 9/11. Then you have the short road to 9/11. Maybe we don't have to look that far back. Maybe we can look back 10 years before 9/11 to the Gulf War and the stationing of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia. Maybe we look 20 years prior to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and how that inspired a whole generation of jihadists that networked themselves into what became Al-Qaeda. Maybe we look 10 years back before that, 1967, and the Six-Day War, which was a stunning victory for Israel against the Arabs, and really destroyed secular Arabism as a focusing factor for much of the Middle East, and forced many countries in the Middle East to turn towards Islam. Pick your date. Pick when you think. Do we look at the short term? Do we look at this long-term period? And decide. And then I think some of you guys posted that on your discussion boards. The one thing I would just say, and I don't want to tilt your opinions here, but if you start looking at 100 years back, like the Mandate period, and talk about colonization, well, again, as I mentioned in the lecture, a lot of countries were colonized. In fact, the whole world was colonized, from sub-Saharan Africa to East Asia. But none of them spawned the terrorist activity that we saw prior to 9/11. So again, where do we look at, not just, again, for 9/11 itself, but that seeming anger that we saw after 9/11, the why do they hate us, as was titled by the Zakaria article that I sent out. Why was that dysfunction occurred in not necessarily the Middle East, but the Arab world itself, and what are the causes for that? So that's hopefully what I've got you to think about. And hint, hint, stomp, stomp, one of your test questions is going to be related to that issue. So make sure you think about it going forward. So that covers week 3. Week 4, we've got a lot going on here, so make sure you focus. The first part of week 4 will cover terrorist adaptation. You have a RAND article that's 200 pages. Don't read 200 pages. It is broken down into 5 terrorist groups: not ISIS, Jemaah Islamiyah, Hezbollah, the Earth Liberation Front, the IRA, and the Moro Islamic Front. And look at those. Choose one of those groups, what you think fancies your opinion, and then watch the ISIS PBS frontline on ISIS and compare and contrast the group that you choose with ISIS. How did they get started? How did they adapt when they received pressure? Why were they successful or not successful? Try and isolate those variables going forward. And ask the question, again, as you're going through these readings, why are certain groups relegated to the dustbin of history while some groups like Hezbollah have been around for almost 40 years now? What are the variables for success? How do they adapt to respond to pressure from the outside? And then when you're looking at the ISIS comparison, ask those questions. Is ISIS following those same cycles that led it to be successful, or could it be successful for the next 30 years, or will ISIS be relegated to the dustbin of history? That's obviously a dynamic story that keeps going, changes every day, but I'll let you decide, but try and draw those connections out. In my lecture, again, I'll talk about why certain groups succeed and others fail, and then in your discussion, again, choose one group compared to ISIS. And then the second part will be WMD terrorism. That's my kind of area of expertise. You will watch the Om Shinrikyo or read the Om Shinrikyo, the Center for New American Studies, and explains how Om Shinrikyo conducted their sarin attack in 1995 in Tokyo. You'll watch the movie Dirty War about a radiological attack against the city of London, or a scenario. And I'm hesitant to give movies out in a graduate program, but I think that there's lessons learned that could come out of that movie that are applicable to you in your careers, particularly if your career is a first responder or anywhere in the counter WMD field. And then the discussion, you're going to ask why Om Shinrikyo was able to be successful while Al-Qaeda has not been successful. So those are my points for this for week 4. If there's questions or issues, please let me know, and I look forward to the discussion.